Michael, Limerick 6 in a row champions. No surprise, I suppose, in the end.
No, I suppose we tipped Limerick there last week to come out on top at the weekend, Stevie, and they did. And I thought it was a very controlled performance from Limerick on Sunday without ever hitting the heights. I suppose the game never hit the heights of the previous 2 years. Limerick looked in control, I thought, all through, and anytime Clare did mount somewhat of a comeback, they always seemed to have the answers for it. I think from the start of the game, they looked more composed. Clare seemed to be always chasing the game, chasing shadows, and Limerick were just at their, I suppose, brilliant best without ever even getting out of fourth gear.
John O'Shea, is it fair to say that Clare never really looked like winning?
No, Stevie, that's correct there. I suppose the goal before half time there was just give them a lifeline. You know, it brought them in on level terms there, 110 to 13 points there. After, Limerick controlling that opening half, and we were probably at half time, what's going to happen now in the second half, and the usual thing happened. Limerick came out, and I think the first 4 shots there, they had 4 points in 4 minutes, and all of a sudden, and after that, really, Clare were living on scraps, I suppose, after that. Limerick, once they got going and got into their own stride, and I mean, I thought on Sunday now, the short, triangular passing movements was probably as good as we have seen from that Limerick team for a while, It
was like the Limerick team of old, really, wasn't it?
And we had questioned them maybe. When I say questioned them, we thought, had they slipped a bit? We thought last week, I certainly thought anyway, that the full back line, I was afraid of that if they got an injury, that there may not be enough cover for it. But, Richie English was back into the team on the match day panel. Dara Donovan had recovered sufficiently to be named on the match day panel. Now, neither of them were wanted, as the case may be. But when I saw that, it was probably Limerick's. It was as strong a team as they could put out. We know they have a few injuries, but they were still able to bring on their subs at the right time. We had probably Tom Morrissey playing one of his best games, certainly this year. We had Dermot Burns back, firing over long-range points there. And an example of that was, I think, it was early in the second half there. He missed a free, and immediately after that, he was way back another 20 metres out, straight from his hand, and he had a cut for it. There was no, he had a point on his mind, and he finished with 5, I think, 2 from frees and 3 from play. I could be vice versa. 3 from frees and 2 from play. And I suppose Hannon had again, definitely his best game this year. But probably, if you look at it, maybe Clare made it that little bit easier for them. I think Clare probably, we had said there that they had lost a bit of their edge, they had lost a bit of the killer instinct this year. It was definitely the worst performance of the 3 finals coming from Clare, and that's not because Limerick, and Limerick, I don't think, as Mike said, they never came out of fourth gear, and they were able to up at any time they wanted to. So, going forward, they have to be firm favourites for the All Ireland. Now, anything can happen. It's all knockout games from now on. Anything can happen there. I suppose they're into the semi-final now. To achieve their 5 in a row, they have to win 2 more matches. It looks very much like they'll be playing Cork in the semi-final. And that could be the biggest test that they have. But, it's very hard to beat Limerick twice to 1 year. But, going back on it was great to see. It was great to be at it. The history being made, 6 Munster finals on the trot. And if somebody said during the week there, Clare has 6 Munster finals in their history. Some of those Limerick players now have 6 in a row, 6 in 6 years, and I think there's about 4 at the panel have 7 Munster medals now. That's a phenomenal stat.
Michael, 14 major titles up for grabs, 14 wins for the management of John Kiley and Paul Kinnerk. I think that speaks volumes, really, but they're very lucky to have the players at their disposal.
Yeah, I mean, that is a phenomenal stat, Stevie. I mean, 14 out of 14 in finals, and they just, I suppose, they just know how to win finals. And as we said, anytime Clare came back at them, they were composed. I suppose that's experience, and they never got rattled, and yeah, and they were able to hold on for the win. I mean, we've often spoke about Limerick's finishing ability, as in the last 15 minutes or whatever, 17 minutes of the game. But in the 15 minutes at after half time, Limerick outscored Clare 1-6 to 3 points, and that was the difference between the two teams at the end. Like first 35 minutes level, as John said, 1-10 to 13, and the remaining 20 minutes of the game, both teams were level as well. But I thought it was a strange game. Like John was naming out the players that played well. Like if you look at who played well for Clare, you'd be saying Peter Duggan had one of his better games. Mark Rogers, without scoring from play, was very, very good at centre forward, and the other wing forward, David Fitzgerald, ended up with 4 points. But on the other side of it, you'd say 3 of Limerick's better performers were their half back line. And like they I think it was 7 or 8 points that they contributed to 9 points that they contributed to the sorry, 7 from play and 2 frees. I think that was it. Yeah. But like that probably shows the way Limerick play, and they don't. It's very, I suppose, would you call it system based, but it's zonal, as in, you don't see Kyle Hayes going up the field after David Fitzgerald into his half-back line. They hold their line around between the 45 and 65, and I suppose they're very intelligent in the way they hurl. I mean, Declan Hannon, who we've been saying all along this Munster campaign, sits kind of on the edge of the D and protects his full back line. The point he scored the other day, he got it on the opposition 65, so he knows when to come up the field and get into the line, and I suppose that's the experience that saw them over the line at the weekend.
Just while I have you, Michael, this year's Munster Championship, we will maybe have a brief look back at that now, but it has been the highest attended Munster Championship for many, many years, if not the highest of all time.
Yeah, I think it is the highest of all time, but and obviously with the round robin and the extra games, that certainly adds to it. But I suppose what has added to the crowds this year has been the resurgence of Cork, and especially in their home games. I mean, they filled Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I think, for both their home games, and then filled Thurles when they got that great win over Limerick. So that has certainly added to the occasion. I suppose also when you look that it's Waterford played their 2 home games at home, and there were 12,000 capacity sellouts. But like last year, they played in Waterford. It would say they played their home games in Thurles. So yeah, I think it's a phenomenal achievement. It shows how the Munster Championship is really growing in popularity. And I think any of the games you've gone to, you see young people around the place in the jerseys of their teams, and the Munster Championship has caught the imagination of the young people, which is what you want.
John, would you be happy enough with the Munster Championship this year in general? I
would, yeah. Look, I suppose the beauty of the attendance has been up is that when you take the expenses out of it, all that money, all the gate receipts for the Munster Championships will revert back to the clubs within the county through grants and whatever. So, it's very important for development of facilities, playing facilities for the clubs around the province. And as Mike said there, if you take, we'll say, the 2 home games of Waterford there, what about 24,000 capacity for the both games in 2 12s, and you go to Cusack Park and you have 2 18s or whatever, it's a huge thing like that. But it's probably, people have to be, like there's certain people that are choosy enough and they have to pick their games and whatever. But the one thing I did notice in Thurles, prior to the game in the town, coming up along there, Larry Mackey's and all that, was the amount of young girls in both Clare and Limerick jerseys. A huge amount. I probably hadn't noticed it before, and that's a great thing, and young boys as well. But the female follower, I thought it was phenomenal, and that's great going forward for the GA. We should have no problem, we should have no qualms about anything. And the detractors and the knockers, I think that's their answer, Stevie.
Well, you see, John, in fairness, I think that Offaly would have, and I'm sure Michael you would agree as well, Offaly would have really we would have seen that with Offaly with under 20s, where the younger generation are coming out in their thousands now, and that is great to see, because now we see that we have their attention, and it's all about holding them now as well, isn't it? And now that is filtering through to other counties, especially when you see it now, as you said, at the Munster final. There was a huge crowd from about 11 a.m. in Liberty Square.
There was, of course, like, and okay, that I think I wouldn't equate it to the Offaly thing, because that just seems to be with that particular team. But this thing now is at senior in Munster, and it bodes well for the future. When you see all those young people, because the youth are the future, and I don't see any problem going forward with it. If the now, I suppose another thing, a lot of those would be probably on student tickets and whatever, like, and that's great. Get them in, pack the grounds with them. That's what you need. You need full grounds, not half full stadiums, for those games. And it was a good, a great atmosphere in Thurles. And it was a great way to finish off the Munster campaign, a great way for to see 6 in a row there, which, unless we see 7 next year, that's another thing now. But, to be very hard for another county, for us to see another county coming up and doing the same thing.
Well, of course it is, because we're known as the home of hurling. But look, we have to admire Limerick and the way they hurl and what they bring to the game as well. I was only yesterday speaking to Paddy Morrissey there from the Galtee Rovers Club, and what he said to me, Michael, was, he said, we have to admire them, he said, and let's admire them, because they're only there for a short time, they're not there for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what Limerick have is generational talent at the moment, and they're bringing in young guys now. I mean, we saw it with Shane O'Brien, who was outstanding at the weekend there in the Munster final, and the previous week when he had scored the 3 points after coming in as a sub for Seamus Flanagan. So, like, yes, you have to admire the Limerick team. As John said, there's some of them. I think there was a picture with 4 of them: Nicky Quaid, Declan Hannon, David Reedy and Graham Mulcahy have 7 Munster finals, and like, there isn't too many above that. I think our own John Dial has 10, and after that then maybe is it Jimmy Barry Murphy has 9 or something. Christy Ring has 9, yeah. So,
but this is the team that could continue. They're not going to give up yet.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. They were like Shane O'Brien coming on. It was on the under-20 team, and like the first 8 balls that came into the corner between himself and Adam Hogan, he was out in front and winning them. Like, and Adam Hogan was being talked up as he was the young hurler of the year last year, and has had a terrific Munster campaign, but he just couldn't live with the power that Shane O'Brien was bringing. And we saw earlier in the campaign, Declan, young O'Dollig there from Monaleen came in, and I mean he was making the scoreboard tick as well. So Adam English from Doon, I mean they have some very good talent coming behind what's there, but I suppose it's all the experience, and I know I'm saying it again, but like the experience that Declan Hannon brings to that squad. And for me, who was the best player in the Munster Championship last year, what Nicky Quaid brings to that Limerick team. And I it's a bold statement, but I don't believe they would have been as successful as they were only for Nicky Quaid, because he started the whole thing off when he brought off that great save interception against Cork in the 2018 semi-final when Seamus Harnley looked like he was going to win the game for Cork. And I don't know, had they not won that year, they might still have been asking questions. But I think this year, when you look back at all the games and the influence of players, and Kyle Hayes has had an excellent campaign in all games. I thought Gerard Hegarty, who I think he got man of the match twice, had an excellent campaign. But I think Nicky Quaid has been an outstanding player and shot stopper for them.
Michael, what game stood out for you?
Yeah, I suppose, Stevie, I had the pleasure of being in Páirc Uí Chaoimh for Cork and Limerick when Cork looked like they were going to go out of the championship. Well, they would have gone out of the championship had they lost to Limerick, and the atmosphere that night on a Saturday evening down in Cork was absolutely outstanding. The crowds that were there, the stadium was packed. It was I think the first time we had seen the High Kings playing before the game, and just the whole atmosphere that night, and Cork with their backs to the wall to go from 8 points up to 4 down to winning by 2, and the crowds that were on the field that night. That was a great occasion to be there, because unfortunately, I suppose, as a Tip supporter, having been at the 4 games, none of them reached those kind of heights.
John?
Yeah, that's right. The Tip games didn't reach those heights, but that game in Cork now, I saw it on the television that evening there. And you coming, the Cork led by 8. They missed the goal in the first half as well. They gave Limerick, a chance to get back in the game with a couple of short puck outs. The ebbs and flows of it, went behind, came back, penalty, high drama at the end. They were thrown a lifeline there. They got over 2 points, and then they headed on to Thurles the following week, and they demolished Tipperary, and they finished third in the campaign behind Limerick and Clare. Good score difference. I think they had a better score difference than Clare. Limerick had the best score difference of the teams in Munster in the round robin, and that brings Cork on.
But do you honestly think, John, that they're going to be a major threat now in the final stages of the All-Ireland Championship?
Oh, they'll definitely have a say, and they have to be respected. Like, they are going up to Tullamore to play Offaly next Saturday, 5 o'clock.
That should be victory for Cork.
Yeah, that's just. I think that's just a game that they have to play, because in all due respects to the Joe McDonagh, it's a different standard. Cork will be. They might even try out some new players there to
John,
see.
To be honest with you, there's a huge gulf between the Joe McDonagh and the Lee McCarthy Cup. I think that there's a massive gulf there.
Massive gulf there, yeah. And that's seen every year when the teams that come up, they're under pressure all the time,
Would Michael agree with that in relation to the gulf I'm saying, Michael?
Oh yeah, certainly, Stevie. And I think in all the years that this has been going on, there's only been one time one of the Joe McDonagh teams has won, and that was Laois beating Dublin in 2019. But I think even the scheduling of it doesn't do the Joe McDonagh teams any favours. Offaly have had a tremendous week now, and we'll say they won the 20s, and they came along and they backed it up with a Joe McDonagh. And now they have to go out 7 days later and try and play, we'll say, the third team in Munster. Like, I don't think it's very fair on Offaly either.
Yeah, they're not getting much of a recovery time, really, are they, John?
No, but that's the consequences. You see, there was a voted Congress last year, and the counties voted to retain that connection. Personally, I'm not in favour of it at all. I think the Joe McDonagh teams there, the winners should be, up in the Leinster Championship next year, but it should finish with the Joe McDonagh final that they're hurling for that year. And that would leave, to space it out further. You could have Offaly and Laois or any other team there playing there for the next 3 weeks or that way, and not to be rushing and compacting everything, because they played, I think, I stand correct on this, they played round 5 of the Joe McDonagh, I think, the week before the Joe McDonagh final. Right. And now they're out next week and Saturday, both of them. Offaly are playing Cork, Laois are playing Wexford. You could have had 2 weeks of between the round 5, like you had in the Munster Championship,
and if there is a
and the Joe McDonagh final, and that it actually gives lads time to recover as well, heading into a final, and then let them enjoy their final, let the winners enjoy it, and they're into the thing. But this thing, it's a token gesture, and I don't know why the teams voted for it, because they're actually going nowhere.
And I don't think the players wanted either, John.
No, I don't think the Joe McDonagh players wanted either.
Now, if there is a slippery slope game, I would imagine possibly Laois and Wexford, Michael.
Look, it's hard to know. I think Wexford finished their Leinster campaign very well. They performed well to get up into third place. Winning above in Galway was a huge result for them. I think they're obviously riding at maybe a bit of a crest of a wave at this time. I think it's the same thing rings true for Offaly as it does for Laois. Like, they played last. They really, in the second half, they fired into the game. They came back to nearly draw level with Offaly before Offaly pushed on kind of in injury time again to win it. But like, Laois will obviously be dejected after losing what is their All-Ireland final, and like having to turn around and play a Lee McCarthy team when all they wanted to do was hang up their boots, maybe go on holidays and then come back and get with their clubs. Because in fairness, like, it's not like they had any chance of winning the All-Ireland final. And I agree with John. I don't know why counties, when this was up for vote last year, I don't know why it was retained. I just don't see any benefit in it.
Michael, well, I have you the All-Ireland Minor Hurling Championship semi-final. It's Galway and Tip in the Gaelic Grounds, 2 p.m. on this coming Saturday. It's a big game for our own young lads.
To be sure it is. And Galway, I think they're, for want of a better word, a bit of an unknown quantity, because they just didn't perform very well in the Leinster Championship. They were beaten fairly comprehensively in the round robin by Kilkenny, and again in the semi-final, I think 15 and 18 points, but have now qualified for a semi-final. And as we know, with Galway at minor, it's a grade that they have been historically very successful at. But this Tip minor team is a very, very good team, very well coached by Foxy O'Brien and James Woodlock. They came through their Munster campaign. They did have one loss to Clare, where they conceded 3 or 4 goals, but rectified that to beat Clare in the Munster final without conceding any goal, and put in a very commanding performance. They're obviously, you never know with young players from week to week, but the way they have performed, they've been very consistent. And I think just looking at the results over the 2 round robins, you'd have to favour Tip in this one.
John, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, even though we don't know too much about Galway, but only what the Leinster Championship results shows. But traditionally, Galway have a very good underage teams, you know, and I think they're playing the other semi-final is it Clare and Kilkenny, is it?
Yep.
Clare and Kilkenny. So, like, you know, Galway came through, Leinster qualified. They are where they are. I suppose on all known forum, we would have to fancy Tipperary going forward on Saturday afternoon. But, you know, young lads are young lads.
It's hard to judge young lads, isn't it?
Yeah, and young lads are young lads. Now, the one thing that Tip does, as the competition has progressed, they've tightened up the defence, and that showed in the Munster final victory over Clare. So, look, fingers crossed, we'll be into another All-Ireland final after Saturday evening.
Team hasn't been announced yet. I wouldn't say that, Michael, that there's going to be any major changes. I would imagine James is probably going to go along with the same 15 from the last day out.
Yeah, it would seem so. Young Aaron Cagney from St Mary's has made a good impression in any of the games he's come on in, but hasn't started any of them. So maybe James just sees him as a guy that can make a difference when he's brought in. I would agree. I don't know. I don't think we'll see any changes, bar there's any injuries that we're not aware of. But I think Tip have 2 outstanding performers in young Ewan Murray, who is underage again next year at centre forward, and Stephen Tobin, the full forward from Carrick. They have been outstanding all throughout the campaign, and are real leaders on the team.
We have some, as you said, they are real leaders. You need leaders. Normally we get leaders down the centre of the spine, but we have leaders at both sides of the spine as well. If you look from the full back line right up to the full forward line, and there are various leaders that James Woodlock and Conor O'Brien, that they can call on and tell them, this is what your job is. Get them settled. Early touches are crucial here. It's an All-Ireland semi-final. An All-Ireland final appearance is now only 64 or 5 minutes away for this team.
Yeah, it is, and I suppose at inter-county level, I suppose you expect everyone to be a leader, I suppose, in their position. And I suppose young Minogue there from Thurles, who got crucial scores the last day, has shown that over the campaign. And yeah, I think there's a lot of guys on this team that have really stood up when they've needed. Dara Hora from Solid has come on a couple of times, got a couple of points in each of his outings, and then started the last 2 games and contributed as well. I mean, David Ryan from Arville Rovers at wing back was exceptional the last day, and Adam Ryan at wing forward is another big guy.
Yeah, and the one thing I like about Adam Ryan as well, I might even go to John on this one, is that when Adam gains possession, he knows where the posts are, and he's not afraid to take on defenders. No,
that's a nice trait in a young fella, you know. Look, that team has been very, very well coached there. Up to you know, they've done everything that was required of them. You know, they lost that match inside in the round robin against Clare in Thurles. But I felt that night, funny enough, that if the teams met again, that Tip would get it, because there were probably 4 crazy goals.
And they scored 19 points.
Yeah, you know, 4 crazy goals to concede. That was sorted out immediately before the next game, the last game against Limerick, and. You know, we saw how they stood up in the Munster final there. But look, I'm very confident going down to Limerick on Saturday, Stevie.
Gentlemen, John and Michael, you're here with me this evening in Golden GA grounds, and again that's Golden Kilfeacle GA grounds, and as you can see the teams of Cashel Kincormacs and Kickham's, they're out preparing at the moment for the upcoming Crosscut Cup final, which will take place here later on this evening. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure speaking to you, and again we wish our miners the very best of luck on this coming Saturday inside in Limerick. It's starting at 2 p.m.
Thanks very much.